All right, Wes here, Lewis County Scoop. We got John French, Lewis County C-1 School Superintendent. He's kind of going to discuss some of the tax issues that are going on at the state level and how it affects us at this level. So, with that being said, I'm going to let John take it away.
Yeah, well, so like we were talking just a minute ago, the budget for next year is being discussed. The Senate has finally passed their version, and now there'll be stuff that's different between the Senate and House that they'll be conferencing over and trying to come to resolution that will then go to the governor, and the governor will have the opportunity to line item veto certain things and so forth. So we're still in an uncertain pattern, but when you can look and see what the governor recommended, what the House voted, and then what the Senate agreed upon, those things pretty certain that that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears there's going to be a pretty good underfunding of the foundation formula, which is what supports public education. So I'll try to briefly touch on things and talk about the formula a little bit. I know it gets very complicated, and I'm not trying to make it that way. It just is. This current year, the way the foundation formula works, it's built on what's called the student adequacy target. And the definition, if you will, of that is what is supposed to take to educate a child to be successful. And there's a way that they've in state statute that they created to define that based off of the top scoring school districts and how much they spend per student. And so that's all put into statute. And if things were right, this year the student adequacy target was supposed to be $7,145. Now, going to come back to that in a few minutes.
So that's per student.
That's supposed to be per student, but it's not what you think it is, because we don't get $7,145 per student.
Yeah.
But that's what most people think it is.
Yeah.
And so, but that's kind of what drives the formula in a part of it. So they talk about that a lot. And you've heard the governor in his State of the State make comments about how they fully funded the formula and record investments in education and stuff. But the truth is, it isn't fully funded. We were $190.6 million short of being able to fully fund that. So schools are not being paid out on a student adequacy target at $7,145. It's not going to reach that even by the end of the year. So part of that has to do with our legislators overestimating how much money was going to come in from lottery, gaming, and then state school money. And they've done that now for a few years, and it continues to exacerbate the problem.
Right.
So there actually was a request for $118 million supplemental budget that didn't pass, and so we're just going to be underfunded for this year. But we know that there's an additional $118 million underfunding on top of that $190 million, so that puts us to $308 million short in the formula for next year.
For the entire state.
Right. And so essentially what that will mean is the student adequacy target's going to go back a couple years ago at the level that it would be funded at, somewhere around 6,740 instead of the 7,145 it's supposed to be. Now, having said that, all things are not equal, because when I explain a little bit more what that student adequacy target and how things happen, the state has done things to divert public dollars to other things, and so then that also lowers it. But so if you take this current school year's along with the projected shortfall of next year's, over that 2-year period, we're looking at almost $500 million, $478 million over that 2-year period. And then there are other things there, but with that $7,145, there are things within the foundation formula that they come in, and as they're doing that, they calculate what it should be at $7,145, and then they subtract out what they think we should be able to provide locally. And then there's other things that they take off the top. And so one of those is you've heard of MOScholars, the basically private school charter voucher program. So when they actually, I have another administrator who received a text just a week or so ago saying, want $7,100 per student, sign up for MOScholars and you can get that. Now, how much do you think our school gets out of it's supposed to be 7,145 per student? What do you think we get?
I'm gonna guess around 3, maybe.
We get $4,153.
Most
That's what
close.
Highland gets.
Right.
And it's different for every school district.
So when
So
they say though, like you said they rely on you to find the rest of the money. Are they meaning your personal property tax income?
they're
Is that
talking our personal property, our real estate taxes,
okay?
all of our local county tax.
Right.
So, and again, if you compare across the nation, Missouri is underfunding public education. More of the burden is being shouldered by you and I as taxpayers.
Right.
Our local taxpayers are paying way more than what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And that continues to kind of be the case. I'm going to put a plug in for Jesse Ohlmeyer does a blog. It's called The Uncommon Ed Leader. He's a superintendent in Canton, and he has some really short, quick reads that are really bringing things down to simple
We'll
terms.
have to get him.
And so, yeah, he would be good. But I printed off a couple of them because it kind of hits to the point. One is entitled One Number, Two Systems, One Big Source of Confusion in Missouri School Funding. And it's kind of talking about this whole thing I've been explaining, that we don't really get $7,145. If you look across the state, the average is probably about $6,400 per student. But again, we don't get that much. And Canton gets more than we do per student. So again, approximately they get $6,400. They look and say our local tax base can support $2,992. So they take that and subtract it off the $7,145, leaving us with $4,153 that we get per student. And that, may not seem like, I mean, that's a pretty big number, but I think most people are looking and they're thinking, okay, so you only get 4,100 instead of 7,100. It's not as, if you take those numbers and really look at it for us, at 900 students, if we were getting $7,145 per student, like everybody thinks that we do, that would be almost $6.5 million. When we actually get about 2.6. And so that's $3.7 million difference if we get that amount. And so, as I was pointing out, those that are in MOScholars, they set up this voucher tax credit program that was initially designed or marketed that it was for low income and special ed students, so that they could attend a school and get better services. Now, as soon as they got that, they've increased the amount that they initially set up. They've increased the amount to qualify, and expanded what they take as verification that they qualify for special ed stuff. So whereas, like, if for example, I can't remember the exact number, but a family of 4 can now make something like close to $300,000 and qualify to be a part of that. That's not low income. They're taking 300% of whatever the free and reduced qualifications are. That's not for low income people.
No, it's not.
That's now trying to get their kid, richer people to get their kids and get the money so they can send them to private school. And again, I don't think that any public administrator, superintendent is going to argue that it's okay for school choice, as they try to use that word because it sounds better, but that's not really what they're doing. They're wanting to take public tax dollars and use it for
their private
school that they don't have to take every student. They can say, well, we're not going to educate you. You have an IEP. We don't have to take you.
Right.
You can dunk a basketball. We take you, and so they're not accountable for the same testing levels or anything.
That bothers me.
So it's the idea really at the base of, if you sit and think about it, it's about they want to keep their kids away from those kids. And you can define those as whatever you want. It's probably different for different people, whether it's racial differences, religious differences, socioeconomic status
Yeah.
differences. I don't know, but the goal is they want to be able to do that. And if you look at the money and you follow what has happened, the majority, it's astonishing, really. Something like 75 to 80% of the people that are receiving the money are not people who left public education to go do that. It's the people that were already in private
Already in it.
education. So, so they've saved themselves money.
And
Okay.
probably usually the ones that do come from public education are probably getting a scholarship at some point with that money, right?
Well, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point. And so the rich can donate to that and then take that off their taxes so they don't have to pay it.
Uh-huh.
And then they turn around and give those, but they've expanded it, so they're giving more people it. And the truth is, it's something like 80% of the entire state goes to Kansas City and St. Louis area. It's we're like less than 1% in our
Yeah.
Northeast region. It's
Right.
like, almost nobody,
Mhm.
So again, it's an expansion. It's a way to take dollars right off the top. So for example, when there is underfunding like this, we're not getting funded at the 7145. It's closer to 6,900 for this year. That's not true for the MOScholars program. They're still getting the
They're getting the
$7,100.
top dollar.
And that comes off the top before any of the money comes in for the public schools. So if it's reduced even more next year, it's still going to be set at 7145 for them. But for us, it's going to drop to like 6,700. Now, how's that right?
Yeah, I know.
And so that's a big argument and debate too, is that um, it's just not a level playing field. They're not held to the same standards. We don't get to pick our students. We expect any kid, we're going to
right.
provide an education to them. And I think that's what we believe in Missouri. I think one of the bigger problems is that most Missourians aren't voting on what education is. They're voting on religious rights, abortion rights, gun rights, all those kinds of things that are important to us. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but they continue to trust that our legislators are going to do, support education in the right way. And it hasn't been that for the last several years. It's been a continual attack on public education.
That's why I've always said it. You can get rid of parties for me. I want somebody that does the job,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. So he had another one. It's called What Fully Funded and Record Funding Doesn't Tell You. Because again, like I said, you hear them pointing out that, well, we've fully funded the formula. There is a difference between what is appropriated and what money is there. So they can pass a budget and say, we've passed the budget to be this, but if they don't have the money to support it and they don't appropriate it, we can't really spend it. The state can't spend it and give it to
Yeah.
us. And so that also happens. And so there's definitely a difference there. So the appropriates what they say that we will receive, but then what's actually funded depends on what money comes in. And so there, again, is a $138 million gap between what was appropriated and actual revenues for this year. And so, again, for Lewis County C1, that was like 3 to 4 teaching positions is what that amounted to for
Right.
this year. Okay. So I try to keep it in context of how does that impact us? 3
Then
to
it
4
yeah.
teachers
Then it
that
impacts the whole community.
yes. And so what's happening is that's just reducing what we're able to do. And at some point we will have to make cuts. We've tried to budget things and set ourselves up knowing that some of this stuff was coming along, but there was a capital gains tax cut a couple years ago. They estimated the fiscal note on it was that it would be like 140, or I'm not exact on the number, but we'll say $140 million is what it was going to cost the state. Well, it came in at 5 times that. So there's not that money there now.
Yeah.
And again, who do you think's gaining from that? It's not us. It's not the average person, So, and talking about level funding, they try to use that word because it sounds good, and everybody's thinking, okay, well, that makes sense. Seems like things are stable, but when we're already short, not being able to fund what we were supposed to be, that's not really level funding. And then there's an added call on the formulas, especially with the new laws they keep passing and things we have to do.
Right.
So it's like, you want us to do this stuff, but you're not funding or providing the money to cover it. And then they just keep passing more things to attack in different ways. So I had they're expecting now for next year that we're probably looking at a SAT of about 6740. That's essentially what it was 2 years ago.
Mm.
So I don't know how you call that level
With the
funding.
cost of living and that
Correct.
going up and going back.
And then, but again, from the MOScholars, they're still going to be getting it. In fact, so initially when that came out, it was 25 million that they set aside, and the investors or the rich could basically put money into that, and then they got a tax credit for doing so. And then those would be given out as scholarships to people to attend private school. Well, then they bumped it up to 50 million. Well, the governor and the House both were asking to increase that to 60 million now. So that would have been even more money being taken right off the top. Now the House or the Senate did not do that in their budget bill. So that'll be a conferenceable item, and how that turns out yet, we don't know. But but that's a concern, because it's yet another thing that may pull away and divert some money from public education. You look like you're going to ask me a question.
No, go.
No? Okay.
Keep going. I had a few.
So again, I want to hit also, because there has been a ton of legislative things. In fact, I'm going to share a document with you. This is a legislative overload in public education. It kind of shows in 2014 we had one law that changed from the House and the Senate. Now 15 and 16 aren't in here because they weren't as easy to find, but as you look, 17 there were about 6, 18 was this many, 19 was this many, 20, 21, then you get to 22, 23, 24, 25. These are all new things, and it just keeps expanding. And it's things like,
wow,
we've got a bill that's going on right now that transportation, they're not looking at it's underfunded by $32.3 million. And again, the Senate did try to add some of that back in, but the governor and the House have basically said they were going to not cover that. And the House or Senate was trying to put 17 million back in. And then there was some money cut. Senate cut 20 million from career ladder funding. At Lewis County, we don't do career ladder. They took it away a long time ago. Everybody was upset about it. And honestly, since they reinstated it, the people that have done finance for long enough know they don't have the money to sustain it. So I'm reluctant to have our teachers start it and then be counting on it and it gets ripped away again. Furthermore, they made it where things we were paying teachers for couldn't count. So like in the past, it used to be if you had a teacher staying after school for tutoring and tutoring students and stuff, that counted for their hours to document they got career ladder. Well, because through COVID and all that, we were paying them, per hour for being there to do that. That didn't count for career ladder. So it really was just going to be a lot of extra work for our staff. But they again look to increase that MOScholars program. They're talking about there's a bill or in the budget bill, they're talking about not basically defunding the Success Ready Student Network, which goes against what the whole state's plan is right now. We've been involved in that work. Highland has, and helped lead that, but it's trying to go away from a once a year high stakes test to testing through the year with our progress monitoring and using that to show growth. And the state is set to do a large scale pilot next year with the intention of adopting that as the new assessment the following year. And so I'm not quite sure where they're going with that, because we have a state waiver and we have a federal waiver from the MAP test to pilot and get this new program started so the whole state can adopt it. But so that kind of came out of nowhere recently. That'll be a conferenceable item. And then there's that House joint resolution, like I was talking about with the income, trying to eliminate the income tax. they're going to use that as a marketing ploy, because the average person, and I include myself in that. I think I get educated a little bit more because of my school setting job and with the job and stuff. But the truth is, most people don't have time to sit and read and pay attention to all the stuff they're doing. And what you hear is, is it okay if we eliminate your income tax? And that sounds good to everybody. But the problem is, if you follow the money and try to think about really what that means, who's going to benefit from that? Well, we all will a little bit, but what they need to do is still replace that money with something.
Yes.
And what they're asking to do is increase sales tax on stuff. They're not telling you what, they're not telling you how much.
There's no guideline.
They're right. So it's basically like they're asking for a blank check. And so I'm just going to throw out a couple of examples. Number one, in that Senate floor debate, as they were talking about, I listened in for a little bit, and there was a senator that kept repeatedly asking the floor leader if, do we need to do this to eliminate the income tax? Because the answer is no, they don't. It doesn't matter if we vote yes or no on this. They can do that now. They're throwing that out because it makes people think, oh, well, they're going to eliminate my income tax. That sounds like a good plan. That would save me this much money, because in our minds, we know what we pay and we see how much comes out of our check. But what we're not thinking about is, okay, so the extremely rich individuals or families within our state who are paying larger amounts because they make billions of dollars every year, it's going to save them a ton of money. And the money that's being replaced then is going to come from increasing sales tax. So it is not estimated right now that if they try to do that and even tax everything that is currently not taxed, which is what they're partially asking to do, is we want to be able to tax whatever is not currently being taxed and to raise sales tax as needed. Okay, so think back of a couple of recent year examples. They've put on the ballot to raise fuel tax, but Missouri has voted that down a number of times. If this passes, that gives them the right to do it. They don't have to ask us to vote on it. They've tried to increase cigarette tax, tobacco tax, and that has been voted down. Well, now they could do that. But then it's also things like haircuts. You don't get taxed on a haircut. Getting your car fixed. There's no tax on automotive. It's all these things that they're saying right now aren't taxed if we start taxing them. And what ends up happening is the average person that maybe, so I'll just give some easy numbers. Let's say you save $1,000 in income taxes, but now what you're paying for everything costs you $2,000. It's not going to help you. And so you have people that are on fixed income like Social Security who right now are not paying income tax on that, but they're going to pay increased sales tax if we try that as a replacement.
Their check will drop.
Yeah. So the money that they live on will go down in value. And then the other part is the only states that have been successful at running no income tax are your tourist states like Florida, California, Texas. And, again, I love Branson, so this isn't a knock on them, but I'm sorry, Branson isn't going to cut it. We're not a big enough tourist state to support that. And I shared with both of you, I was in San Diego for a conference just a couple weeks ago. The regular unleaded fuel cost was $6.99. Diesel was $8.49. Again, if they have to raise the taxes to cover things, that's the kind of thing we look at seeing. Yeah. And if we had a bunch of tourists that were coming in and paying those prices, it would help our state. But that isn't going to happen to offset the amount we would lose. So I think people really need to think about it and get a little bit educated on it, because it's something that it's going to sound like it makes good sense and it's going to save us money, but in the long run, it's going to hurt us all. That'll be in the August or November election. The governor gets to decide that. I don't know. It hasn't been determined yet. There's all kinds of property tax bills. There's a literacy bill out there. This one blows my mind too. So since 2001, we've had a reading statute in place that if kids aren't on grade level in reading by the time they hit 4th grade, they have to be retained at 4th grade. Now, at Highland, we have never had to do that. We keep track of all that. Our kids, by that time, they're at reading level. So we're doing fine. Well, this bill, I think it's House Bill 2872, it now takes it from kindergarten to 3rd and requires mandatory retention. And if you think your daughter is fine, it doesn't matter because it comes down to one test on one day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the parent says, and it doesn't matter what the teacher says. So I could be your daughter's teacher, and they took a test and didn't perform at the level, which we don't even know what the test is or what the level is, but just to give an example. And so maybe they come up just shy of it. Well, this would say they have to be retained. And not only are they retained, but they have to be put in a special classroom where they're contained in that classroom all day. Well, we don't even have the space for that. We can't find regular teachers now. Where's the money going to come from to support being able to do that? Who are we going to hire to do that? And again, I would argue that other law is still in place for the 4th grade. We've been doing it and getting along well the whole time. They just passed a law 2 years ago in regards to reading, and they've started providing, it's called letters training, but it's following the science of reading, and we've had teachers trained for it. But we're only in the 2nd year of it. I mean, we don't even know how that's working yet. And then they're going to switch and do this. I mean, that's some of the overload stuff I'm talking about. It's like, okay, why don't you wait and see if this is actually working and if you need to do that?
Yeah, then you're training all your teachers at the same time, trying to get them ready for something new, and you're taking away from the classroom at the same time.
And again, I guess the question is, what is the purpose? I mean, if we're being successful as it
Right.
is, why do we have to do that?
Yeah.
You know, and I can't believe that Missouri. I mean, again, this is going to be a legislator's decision. This one isn't going to come to us as a vote. Either this passes as state statute, and that's what we have. But I don't think that I would talk to any Missouri resident that wouldn't push for local control and parents having a decision and the school having a decision.
Yeah.
But that may happen. They've got a bill that's trying to push increased PE and recess time, including providing recess at high school. Okay, so I mean, sometimes it's just laughable.
That yeah, I'm
I
sorry,
mean,
I was getting ready to laugh.
well, it is. I mean,
mean,
it's like, okay, really? That's what we're going to push? But we've got a school in the Southeast that's standing to lose about $800,000. They're looking at cutting their band program completely for next year. And we just can't. I mean, that's not what's best for Missouri's
no,
kids.
and honestly, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here, but is that what their end goal is? Is some of these smaller schools trying to get them to co-op, or I mean, I don't know.
I will say that there are legislators who they know it's not going to go over well to say that consolidation or to close down schools. But there are some that think we do have some schools that are too small. And in certain areas, again, you get into the metropolitan areas like St. Louis and Kansas City, you have a ton of schools right in one area. We've already been consolidated. I just drove a bus route where we went through 4 counties on that one bus. Okay. And our district covers 5.
Right.
So it's there. The idea of consolidation up here, we are in the top 10 for largest geographic area. Knox is in the top 10 for geographic area. Clark is in the top 10 for geographic area. Everything up here is so far and spread out that doesn't even make sense, you know? So, I do think there's some of that, but I also think it's about wanting to, like I've said in the beginning, keep their kids away from those kids,
Yeah.
and the idea of being able to divert public money to pay for private education so they can say, we just want our kids here. We want to keep the entitled
And
or
play
the
by their
elite
own
with
rules.
their rules. Yeah. And that's just not what public education is supposed to be. It's supposed to be we educate every child, and every child has a chance to pull themselves out of that. So there's one trying to reduce what the minimum tax levy, it would allow us that you just basically have to keep rolling your tax back until it gets to zero for the minimum levy. Again, that's just the only thing that makes sense there is that you're trying to destroy public education.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I sat through a meeting this week at the spring conference with MOASBO and the deputy commissioner of financial, Kyle Cruz from DESE, gave a pretty good rundown of the state formula and kind of highlighting some of those things, but it gets a little more technical. But I think, again, if somebody is interested, you could look at the blog Uncommon Ed Leader by Jesse Olmeyer. You can just pull that up on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
But
We'll be sure to share it.
And he really does. About every week, he's got an article that's kind of trying to take something and make it pretty simple and touch on some of the
That's good.
realities. I don't know. I feel like I've hit on probably the majority of the stuff.
You've educated me a lot. I mean, there's some stuff that you
Yes.
described that I did not know for sure. And yeah,
Well, and listen, I'm going to tell you, there's tons of superintendents who don't know all of that stuff either.
right.
Because we have a job we have to do. It's because I'm involved with some of the leadership aspects at the state level and the national level that I get some of this. We do have a legislative call with the Missouri Association of School Administrators every Monday. It's only about a half hour long, and they kind of update us on what's happened in that week. And so that's where Jesse Olmeyer, myself, a few of the others that are more vocal and try to get out and explain things a little bit have taken some of that and kind of trying to talk about it.
That's good. I'm glad we had you on to.
Um,
John, we appreciate you coming in, and you can use this platform anytime you want to spread news about the school and any topics we need to get out there. So we appreciate it.
yeah, I appreciate you guys having me, invite me.
All right. That'll do it.
All right. Thank you.